He sat quietly outside the supermarket, his cardboard sign barely readable, until a young soldier recognized the tattoo on his weathered hand. What happened next changed everything anyone thought they knew about the man they'd been ignoring for months. Welcome to Story with Jorge. Before we begin this powerful story of judgment, sacrifice, and unexpected heroism, tell me in the comments what city you're watching from today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be heard, hit that subscribe button to help us share them with the world. The Riverside Grocery sat on the corner of 5th and Main, a place where suburban families bought their weekly necessities without much thought. Clean aisles, bright lights, and the kind of predictable routine that made people feel safe. But for 3 months, that routine had been disrupted by one man. His name was unknown to most. They simply called him the homeless guy, or that man outside. He sat on the same piece of cardboard every morning, positioned just far enough from the automatic doors to avoid trespassing, but close enough that customers had to see him. His sign was simple, written in shaky letters: veteran, hungry, God bless. Most people walked past without making eye contact. Some dropped quarters into his worn baseball cap. Others muttered complaints under their breath about people like him ruining their shopping experience. The store manager, Mrs. Patterson, had called the police twice, but there was nothing illegal about what he was doing. His appearance didn't help his case. Gray hair that hadn't seen a barber in months, clothes that had been worn too many times between washings, and hands that carried the kind of dirt that doesn't wash off easily. He looked like what people expected a homeless person to look like. What they didn't notice was the way he sat, straight-backed, alert, eyes constantly scanning the parking lot like he was watching for something. On Tuesday morning, October 15th, everything changed. Specialist Marcus Thompson was home on leave, stopping by the store to grab supplies for his mother's birthday dinner. At 23, Marcus had just completed his second deployment to Afghanistan, and civilian life still felt strange to him. He wore his dress uniform. He was due at a ceremony later that afternoon honoring fallen soldiers. As Marcus approached the store entrance, he noticed the homeless veteran like everyone else did. But unlike everyone else, Marcus looked closer. Maybe it was his military training, or maybe it was something else, but his eyes were drawn to the man's left hand, resting on his knee. There, faded but unmistakable, was a tattoo that made Marcus stop dead in his tracks. It wasn't a random design or a name or a symbol most people would recognize. It was a unit patch, specifically the insignia of the 75th Ranger Regiment, but this wasn't just any Ranger tattoo. Below the patch were small numbers, 275ths, and beneath that, a date that made Marcus's blood run cold. October 3rd, 2001. Marcus knew that date. Every soldier knew that date. It was barely 3 weeks after September 11th when the Rangers had conducted their first major operation in Afghanistan. Operation Enduring Freedom's opening strike, the Battle of Takur Ghar. Marcus had studied it in training, heard the stories from older soldiers, read the classified reports he wasn't supposed to see. This man wasn't just a veteran. He was one of the first boots on the ground in Afghanistan. He was a Ranger who had jumped into hell when the rest of America was still figuring out what had happened to them. Marcus stood there for a moment, people flowing around him like water around a stone. The homeless man looked up, and for a second, their eyes met. There was something in that gaze, not the broken look of a man who had given up, but the steady, watchful eyes of someone who had seen too much and carried too much for too long. "Excuse me, sir," Marcus said quietly, crouching down to eye level. "That ink on your hand, 2nd Battalion, 75th Rangers." The man's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his posture. He looked at Marcus more carefully now, taking in the uniform, the ribbons, the bearing of a professional soldier. "Long time ago," he said simply. His voice was rough like gravel, but there was something underneath it, an authority that hadn't been completely worn away by time and circumstances. "My name is Marcus Thompson, sir. I'm with the 82nd Airborne. I just wanted to say thank you for your service, especially what you did in those early days." The man studied Marcus for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Name's Jack Sullivan. And don't thank me yet, son. You don't know what I did." But Marcus did know, or at least he knew enough. That afternoon, Marcus couldn't stop thinking about the encounter. Instead of going straight home after his ceremony, he drove back to the grocery store. Jack was still there, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the parking lot. This time, Marcus didn't just stop to talk. He went into the store, bought 2 sandwiches and 2 bottles of water, and came back outside. He sat down on the concrete next to Jack, ignoring the stares from other customers. "You mind if I ask what happened?" Marcus said, handing Jack one of the sandwiches. Jack unwrapped it slowly, his weathered hands careful with the packaging. "What always happens," he said. "War ends, politicians move on, country forgets. Some of us don't come back the same." Marcus waited. He had learned in his own deployment that some stories come out slowly, like water from a deep well. "I did 4 tours, Jack continued. Afghanistan, Iraq, Afghanistan again, then back to Iraq. Saw things, did things, lost people who mattered." He took a bite of the sandwich, chewed thoughtfully. "Came home in 2009, had some problems adjusting, marriage fell apart, drinking got bad, lost my job, lost my house, and here we are." "What about the VA? Benefits? You're a decorated veteran, sir. There should be resources." Jack laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think I haven't tried?" "System's broken, son. Worse than broken. They got 1,000 ways to say no and about 1 way to say yes. I've been on waiting lists for counseling for 2 years. Housing assistance? They want documentation I don't have anymore. Job training? Can't get it without an address? Can't get an address without a job." Marcus felt something burning in his chest. This wasn't right. This wasn't how it was supposed to work. "Besides," Jack continued, "most people don't want to hire a guy who's been sleeping rough for 3 years. They look at me and see a problem, not a solution." They sat in silence for a while, watching people come and go. Soccer moms with their SUVs full of kids, businessmen grabbing quick lunches, teenagers buying energy drinks and candy, all of them walking past without a second glance at the man who had once parachuted into enemy territory to hunt down the people who had attacked their country. "You know what the worst part is?" Jack said eventually. "It's not the cold nights or the hunger or the looks people give you. It's the feeling that everything you did, everything you sacrificed, it just doesn't matter to anyone." Marcus felt a decision crystallizing in his mind. "What if I told you that you're wrong about that?" Jack looked at him skeptically. "I'd say you're young and idealistic and you'll learn better." "Maybe. But what if I told you that I've been looking for someone exactly like you?" That got Jack's attention. "What do you mean?" Marcus pulled out his phone, scrolled through his contacts, and made a call. "Hey, Mike?" "It's Marcus. Remember that conversation we had about the veteran outreach program? I think I found our guy." Over the next hour, Marcus made 3 more calls. By the time he was done, Jack Sullivan's life was about to change dramatically. The first call was to Mike Rodriguez, a fellow veteran who ran a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping homeless veterans. Mike had been looking for someone with Jack's specific background, not just any veteran, but someone with real combat experience and leadership training, to help develop their new peer counseling program. The second call was to Marcus's commanding officer, who had connections with a local business owner who specifically hired veterans. The man didn't care about gaps in employment or housing situations. He cared about character, and he trusted Marcus's judgment. The third call was to Marcus's own mother, who had been a social worker for 20 years and knew every resource and loophole in the system. By the time the sun was setting, Jack Sullivan had 3 job interviews lined up, a temporary housing placement, and an appointment with a VA counselor who specialized in helping veterans navigate the system. But the real change wasn't in the phone calls or the appointments. It was in the way Jack sat a little straighter, the way his voice got a little stronger, the way he looked at Marcus with something that might have been hope. "Why?" Jack asked as Marcus prepared to leave. "Why are you doing this?" Marcus thought about it for a moment. "Because when I was deployed, there was this old sergeant who told me something. He said, 'We don't leave anyone behind. Not on the battlefield, not at home, not anywhere.' I guess I finally understand what he meant." 3 weeks later, Marcus stopped by the grocery store again. Jack wasn't there. For a moment, Marcus felt a stab of worry. Had something gone wrong? Had Jack disappeared back into the system of shelters and street corners? Then he saw him. Jack Sullivan was walking out of the store, wearing clean clothes and carrying a grocery bag. He saw Marcus and walked over with a smile, the first real smile Marcus had seen from him. "How's the new job?" Marcus asked. "Good, real good. I'm helping other veterans now, working with Mike's program. Turns out all those years of experience dealing with bureaucracy and system failures, they're actually useful when you're helping other people navigate the same problems." Jack looked different, not just cleaner or better dressed, but fundamentally different. He stood like a soldier again, moved with purpose, spoke with confidence. "I wanted to thank you," Jack said, "not just for the help, but for seeing me, for looking close enough to see who I really was, not just what I looked like." Marcus shook his head. "I didn't do anything special. I just paid attention." "Son, that's the most special thing of all. Most people don't want to see. They don't want to look close enough to recognize that the person they're ignoring might be someone who once risked everything for them." They talked for a few more minutes, and then Jack had to go. He had a meeting with a young veteran who was struggling with his transition back to civilian life. As he walked away, Marcus noticed something else different about him. He walked like a man who had found his mission again. 6 months later, Marcus received a letter in the mail. It was from Jack, who had been promoted to program coordinator at the Veteran Outreach Center. The letter was brief, but it included a newspaper clipping about the program's success in helping homeless veterans find housing and employment. At the bottom of the letter, Jack had written, "We don't leave anyone behind. Thanks for reminding me of that." Marcus folded the letter carefully and put it in his wallet, right next to his military ID. Because sometimes the most important battles aren't fought with weapons or strategies. They're fought with recognition, with compassion, with the simple act of seeing someone for who they really are, not just what they appear to be. The next time Marcus passed a homeless veteran, he didn't just drop change in their cup. He stopped, made eye contact, and said, "Thank you for your service." And he meant it, because he had learned that heroes don't always wear uniforms or carry flags. Sometimes they sit on pieces of cardboard outside grocery stores, waiting for someone to look close enough to see the tattoo on their weathered hand and recognize the person they used to be, and still are, underneath everything life has thrown at them. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply pay attention. So now I ask you, have you ever walked past someone without really seeing them? Have you ever missed a story, a history, a human being because you only saw what was on the surface? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this story touched you, subscribe to Story with Jorge, because every week we're here to remind you that extraordinary stories are hiding behind ordinary faces. You just have to look close enough to see them. Thank you for watching, and remember, everyone has a story. Everyone deserves to be seen.